I really cannot say that I expected us to still, on March 13th, be talking about possible playoff math with the way this season has gone.
I feel like we're just getting set up for disappointment again. And the amount of times throughout the season we've been like, it's beyond over. It it doesn't make sense. I don't know. It feels like they should have been out of this a long time ago, but here we are.
Here we are. They basically sell off at the deadline, a somewhat waving of the white flag, and they're going to go into tomorrow night 5 points out of a playoff spot. Nuts.
Could you believe actually selling at the deadline probably made them a better team?
It probably was a bit addition by subtraction, especially in the case of good old EJ. But no, it's been a fairly positive. It's been a fairly positive reaction and a response from the deadline, shipping out their captain, a core player. It yeah, it's gone well, and it was one of the things I had brought up the past few episodes. I wanted to see how they do without, at the very least, without Kyle Okposo, and now even losing a guy who had been there the longest besides Okposo and Gergensons in Middlestat, and it's been a bit of a boost. It didn't start out that way, but now they've rattled off two straight. Uh, Obviously, the big win coming against Detroit last night, and now they got two consecutive games against teams that they're chasing in this playoff race.
These are must wins. These are the two games you need to start off with. You know, you gotta rattle off a streak here because my prediction was going into these last 16 games, they'd have to be 11-3-2. That would put us around 91 points, and that's like a coin flip chance of getting in. You would need some help. You would need Detroit to fall off. You would need Washington to lose a few in a row because you have three games in hand on them right now. And
And
you need the Islanders to start faltering, who are currently red hot. So
no, you're absolutely right. It's kind of crazy. You look at some of the percentages and projections going around the different models. There there might be an Eastern team that gets in with less than 90 points. Like there's a chance of it happening.
when's the last time that happened?
Oh, I don't
It
even
has to have been
know.
a long time ago because usually it's like at the very least like low 90s.
I saw something going around. It was the 2015-16 Minnesota Wild. I think they got in with 87. I need to double
That's
check that.
that's got to be like a 500 hockey team if you're getting in with 87 points, maybe a little bit over 500. But yeah, these are must wins here. Like it's finally do or die time. We've been saying it all year that like, oh, they're out of it. It's not going to be close. Well, these other teams are kind of helping you. So you're going to make it close, but you need to win. You need to take care of business in your own right first.
So listen to this. Minnesota was the second wild card spot that year, 87 points. And somehow the team below them, like it wasn't an 87, teams hovering around that and just tiebreakers kind of ended that. No, the Wild were 5 points clear of the Avalanche. And then every team below them were in the 70s. The Oilers had 70 that season, the Canucks had 75, the Flames had 77, the Jets and Coyotes both had 78.
Oh my God, it's like Battle of the Mid. That's terrible.
That is such a bad
What,
year
what
for the West.
was it a top heavy year? Did the President's Trophy go to the West?
The President's Trophy winners were Lindy Ruff's Dallas Stars. They had 109 points, or
Mm.
maybe they won the conference. No, they I think they won the. I don't know. They came in first in the West. The Blues finished with 107. The Blackhawks finished with 103, and the Predators finished with 96. So I guess kind of top heavy, but it's just a bad year. I'm sure the East was loaded.
It always is. Every single year. I bet you the Sabres could have snuck in once or twice in the past, but it's just been loaded years.
I would argue this year it's not though. I mean,
No, it's open.
The West were the big buyers at the deadline this year. Uh,
And yeah, it's looking like the West is already locked up for the playoffs too.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your contender. I mean, obviously Vegas is the big team coming out of the deadline. Dallas has been a contender all season. Colorado had a huge deadline. The Oilers, the Canucks. I mean, the Canucks are going to win the West, or possibly. It's definitely they're not going to have an 87 point team getting in. I'll say that.
Mm-mm,
So
absolutely not.
crazy stuff, but crazy that we are still talking the playoff race a little bit. But in any case, welcome back to another episode of the Sabre Roundtable. My name is Jonah,
And I'm Christian.
and as always, we will be talking to you about all things Buffalo Sabres hockey and even a little bit of the wider NHL.
Minus a guy. No
Minus
JP.
JP. No JP this time around. TBD when he will be making his return. He's a little tied up in some work, but me and Christian will be with you for the foreseeable future, and
And coming to you live in high definition.
that's
All right. If you're a YouTube viewer, there's no more me with my fan light on that's kind of like in and out and I'm fading into shadows and everything. Invested in a light, so got some new equipment and I'm already digging it. So I'm not straining my eyes seeing my face go in and out of the background.
the production values have definitely seen a bump between this week and last episode.
Absolutely.
In any case, we'll be talking to you about the last week of Sabres hockey, some of the big topics surrounding the team, most notably Bowen Byram. We'll quickly recap to you the rest of the Sabres deadline. Last time we spoke, the Byram trade had just happened that day. We'll talk to you a little bit about the exclusive season ticket holder event that Christian, myself, and JP all got the chance to attend. Should be a fun one.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's get into the Sabres. So here we are. It's March 13th, and there's some meaningful games in March being played.
Yeah, semi-meaningful, but
I would call them meaningful. I would.
meaningful enough.
A few weeks ago, the Sabres were 14 points away from the Red Wings.
Closing the gap quick.
A large factor of that is because, the Red Wing, I don't think the Red Wings have won a game in March. I think they're 0
Nope.
and 6. So obviously you get help there, but look, the Sabres they've been putting together some wins. I think in their last 10 they're 7-3 around there.
Dude,
They're 6-3-1.
they've been good since the beginning of 2024. Since the clocks changed to New Year's, they've been a good hockey team. If they'd been playing like this in November,
Yeah.
I'd say we'd be sitting where the Islanders are right now.
They've still had their stinkers this year.
Oh,
Most
absolutely.
the Anaheim game comes to mind, but
Yeah.
both Anaheim games come to mind, but it's definitely like it's been an upward trend. And I know it's not a lot of people will roll their eyes when they hear, like, we're going to get into the blue and gold insights thing where Don Granato specifically was talking about that there's still been progress this season. And look, a lot of people that's going to be very frustrating. And I completely understand that. But I I try to keep things in perspective. I think as a rational person, I think as a rational fan, as best I can be, I try to keep things in perspective. Look, they're looking like they're going to finish over 500 again. And that's
hmm
two consecutive seasons of it. And look, the bar's low, but they never got there with Jack Eichel. They never got over 500. This is supposed to be the season from hell. Like
Yeah.
sky high expectations, falling flat, everything seems to be regressing, and the finished product is still going to be a lot better than what a lot of what we've went through.
It's kind of surprising because it's like I feel like as fans, our expectations have been raised, and we're still kind of in that place of like, when are they going to make the playoffs? But it's not as bad in years past. Like this core obviously is a better core than the Jack Eichel cores. They never got above 500. They never got close to a playoff spot other than sitting in one during the 10 game win streak. I think there's a lot of fire left in this team. I feel like they just got the car started too late in the season. Like it's frustrating, and I don't want them going into the off season with this false sense of security again. I've heard it everywhere. People are talking about this. Some of the WGR guys Paul Hamilton in particular is saying that who if this team goes into the offseason missing by a couple points again and thinks we could just sit on our hands and maybe make a couple additions here and there, that they're fine. That's not that can't be the case. There still needs to be some big changes made, some big additions made to the forward group in particular to make them comfortably get into a playoff spot, not wild card fringe to compete for the top of the division within the next few years.
Why don't we talk about additions? Why don't we talk about one specific addition, Bowen Byram? What a
Mm,
first 3 games it has been for Byram.
he
If you listen to our last episode, I don't want to say I was being a Debbie Downer, but I was trying to be rational. I was trying to think to myself, look, this is a guy who has struggled for a very good team. Players who struggle on very good teams traditionally do not translate when they go to a team that is also struggling. And I had mentally accepted, look, we're probably going to lose this trade in the short term. Let's see how he progresses. And Bowen Byram has come in and for 3 consecutive games has probably been the Sabres' best player, at least 2 of 3. His debut against Nashville, and I would say last night against Detroit. 3 goals in 3 games. Should have had an assist added to that. That got taken away from him in the Edmonton game. But I mean, my expectations were, there. I wanted to see flashes. I knew he was going to be playing with Darlene. He's exceeded them. Like he's been
he
awesome.
he came out red hot and it was, one of the last things I was expecting to happen. I knew he was going to come in and make some sort of positive impact. I mean, we traded one of our best forwards at that point in time for him. So I knew we had to be getting something decent, and his track record has shown that he's been a great player when he's healthy. And these first 3 games, he has not disappointed at all. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's just like a breath of fresh air into this roster, him jumping up into the plays. He was on that second goal he had against Detroit. He was like basically playing forward. He was down at the net attacking a rebound.
I think he was when he was interviewed after the game. He said something along the lines of, "Yeah, I just saw like Thompson getting ready to shoot it from the point, so I just went for the rebound, and there he just scored. Like it's just that he has those instincts. Guy can score. He's 12 goals this season
That's
in
the
a
type of
season
hockey we
in a
need in this
in a
team.
season where he's struggling. He's still producing, and I don't know if Kevin Adams is going to be a fan of that in a year when he's talking contract negotiations, but hey, I will gladly be in that spot where if we have to pay a guy because he's doing super well.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. Pay him whatever he wants. It's only been 3 games. Pay him whatever he wants.
But I think the biggest thing for me coming out of this is the fact he's doing so well with Bowen Byram. And everybody's noticing, including the coaching staff. And for me, that's big, A, because that is an unreal top pair. You have Rasmus Dahlin, who has become the franchise defenseman we've always wanted him to be. And now you've seemingly got a guy with a somewhat similar ceiling, and you can play them together. There were times where Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin were playing together for full games. And every now and then, prior to this trade, you'd still see them thrown out there together, maybe at the end of periods or while the Sabres were chasing a game. But you couldn't do it over a full game. The depth would fall off immediately right after. You just couldn't do it. And even Dahlin and Power as a pair, very high event. They gave up just as much as they were going for. But now with Byram, like you have a guy who can be as up tempo, as creative as Dahlin, and still have Owen Power on your second pair, who, by the way, has been amazing since he got back from injury. He's been fantastic, I think.
Complete.
I was very upset they called back that overtime goal because heading into Detroit, he would have been leading the team in points and in goals since coming back from injury.
He's the most underrated player on this team. He gets way too much hate from people. Like people saying that he doesn't do enough or he looks like he has no offensive presence or he just doesn't look like he's doing anything out there. When he was out, our defensive unit suffered so much from that loss. And just right there, it shows you that he's probably, there's a reason we have him locked up for the next 8 years. He's going to be one of the more important pieces to this team going forward, whether you agree with that or not.
I was another point. I mean, he had 2 points taken away this week, and he had
Yeah,
another great pass on the Tyson Jost goal that was taken away. Well, I was also upset he didn't get that goal because he's been great these past 2 games since getting called up. But Power found Robinson streaking in the slot, and he slipped it right back door to Jost. Uh, you've just seen like the ups, like you can see what Adams and the front office are trying to build with this addition of Byram. We talked about Chad DiDominis's article last week and how the team wants to get back to an up tempo pace of play. I mean, look, they went toe to toe with the Edmonton Oilers and just ran the Detroit Red Wings out of the arena last night. It's fun. It's fun stuff. You see why they love this guy. Bo-Mania is just running wild.
yeah. Enjoy those games too. When they're kicking the crap out of a team, you know, you don't get those every now and then. Well, you get them every now and then, but they don't come often. Just even if you're out of a playoff race or it's looking unlikely, just enjoy that game because once the off season kicks in, you're not going to see hockey again until October.
There was a moment in that game, and I think we all know the moment. It was when Ben Sherratt came down and made it 2-1, and I'm like, ah, they got that goal taken back. Like I know they scored again, but they got a goal taken back. Now Detroit gets a goal on their second shot of the game, and I was just like, oh, that might be that might
Like a
kill
momentum
them
swing.
or a momentum swing or at least slow them down. Like what, a minute later, Dylan Cousins, Jordan Greenway, who was a beast all night, and Zach Benson. They just have the heaviest shift and find the loose puck, scramble. Greenway with a fantastic pass to Zach Benson, who slides a 5 hole. And it was 3-1. And at that moment, I think I was like, they're gonna win this game. They are going to win, and it just didn't stop. Zach Benson had 3 points and 5 minutes of ice time after that first period.
Yeah, game was over by the end of the second period.
Good reminder that Detroit had the chance to take him at ninth overall. Just wanted to slip that in there.
Who'd they take instead?
Nate Danielson.
Mm.
He's not Zach Benson.
No, he is not. Honestly, if we were redrafting this class right now, Zach Benson would probably be going like fourth. So,
Yeah, 4, 5, 6, definitely in that range.
yeah.
So just a unbelievable last 2 games. That even to go back to that Oilers game, crazy sequence. Power wins it with 2 seconds left. The place goes ballistic. Everybody left. At the time when they came back from commercial and said the game was being resumed, you thought the Oilers challenged, and no, it was the league.
Hmm.
So you could tell. I think Granado was talking about it when we were at the Blue and Gold Insights, and how as soon as he heard that they had to go back out, he was like, "All right, let's go win it again." And they all got out there. And as you recall, we were waiting for the Oilers to get back out there. They didn't want to keep playing. They wanted to go home.
Yeah, I heard some of those guys had half their equipment off at that point, but yeah, at the Blue and Gold Insights, he was just like I think someone asked him about it, and then he was just like, "All right, well, let's go back out there and let's win it again." And then team just,
They did. They
they did.
rallied. They
They
almost
rallied
wanted
in the
it.
shootout.
They almost, if Cousins would have scored that goal with two
Oh
seconds left in
man,
overtime, oh my, that would have been probably one of the best puck to line moments in NHL history.
that would have been nuts.
Before we get off of this, I want to shout out Jacob Bryson, who we've been talking about the past few episodes. He's been great.
My
He's been
boy.
really great, and he got rewarded with a goal against Edmonton, which was
Hmm.
awesome, and it came in a clutch time. I think that was actually his first goal at home as a Sabre.
He's playing like he wants like that. He wants that extension, man. He's an RFA this summer. I think you could bring him back on like a $1.5 million deal, even if it's like a year or two.
I would be open to it. I know this play probably isn't super realistic long term, but I think he's a better option than Connor Clifton, who,
It's your depth right there.
yeah, yeah. All right. So, positive vibes out, fun last few games, fun few storylines, Bo Byram. Let's continue the fun, the playoff race. Right now, we're speaking to you before the Sabres Thursday night matchup against the New York Islanders and the
Uh,
Saturday matinee matchup against the Detroit Red Wings. The two most important games of this season. These are the two teams you are chasing in this race. Obviously, you got Washington, New Jersey still hovering around, Pittsburgh still there, but Detroit's the team that has a spot, has had a spot for the past month, and the Islanders are the other team who have been hot and been trying to take that away. This is your chance. This is your chance right now. You have to win these two games. The Islanders you get at home, and the Red Wings you go to Detroit, but you also still get a Dylan Larkin-less team, I believe. I don't think
mhm.
he didn't practice today on Wednesday, so I would be sort of surprised if he played Saturday.
Yeah, so would I. But I don't, you know how much I hate Islanders hockey, man, but most boring team in the league. But you got to overcome it somehow. This game needs to end in a regulation win. The next two games need to end in regulation wins. No, you can't take it to overtime. I would be curious as to what Don Granato would do. I'm almost certain he wouldn't do this, but tie game, third period,
I think I know where this is going.
few minutes left. Do you pull the goalie?
I don't think in regulation. Overtime, it's a compelling argument.
I
We
mean,
as we saw against with Minnesota against Nashville. It's a gutsy call, but it can work out.
I feel like in overtime, I would trust the team more just because we're such a good 3-on-3 hockey team. I don't know if I would do it in overtime just because it's like it's such a risk.
I
And
would do it.
you already got the point. They already got the point anyway. So you might as well just try
Yeah,
and win it.
every point matters. I don't know. I would definitely if I think I would do it if it becomes a power play. If they have a 4-on-3, I would be like,
Mm,
screw it. I'll make it a 5-on-3. Let's go for it. Let's get this point. But these two games, no doubt about it, the two biggest back-to-back games of the year. Last game, last night against the Detroit Red Wings, this team got their revenge on Alex Lyon, who essentially ended their playoff run last year while he was a part of the Florida Panthers. Tomorrow, you get your shot back at Hudson Fasching. Now he's not going to be in the lineup. I was very
good.
upset. I was
Good.
very upset to read that. I wanted him to play, but he'll be watching. This is your chance. Look, the Islanders, they you could argue that game killed their playoff chances because they lost that game. You know, Hudson Fasching kicks in that goal, or sorry, didn't kick it in, and the team just spiraled after that. That was when they had like one win in 7 or 8 games. I mean, that's the win that kind of torpedoed their season. Don't let it happen again. You you've had two good games against the Islanders this year. The one game it was a toss up, lost in New York, and then here you ran them out of the building. Do it again. You have like Don Granato has to show up tomorrow with the game plan to win. And I know how that sounds, but he has to expect that these Islanders, they know how the Sabres play. They've shut them down many times before. I know Patrick Waugh is the one coaching them now, and it's not Lane Lambert, but you cannot get out coached this game. And I think a big part of tomorrow is going to be you got to get ahead because if the Islanders go up 1 or 2 and they can just sit back, that's going to be tough to come back from.
Yeah, goals are going to be at a premium tomorrow. A serious premium because they'll trap you the rest of the game. You saw it at the beginning of the year. They'll sit back and they will play park the bus defense. And it works. Unfortunately, it works for them. It is the most boring style of hockey, should be banned, should not be a style you're allowed to play because I want to tear my eyes out when I watch it. But nevertheless, it's a game. You could play it the way you want. So you gotta get out there. You gotta get out there quick tomorrow You got to bury a few in the first period. You need to get a lead. All right. You need to get the confidence going. Just like last night, you need to get those juices flowing. And then just, after that, try and run up the score. Just repeat what you did last night. Just take whatever you did. I don't know how many times I've said this. Take whatever you did in the game you played so well in and just duplicate it, please.
5 points. That is what separates the Sabres from that second wild card spot. Now, it's a bit of a different situation than last year because now they're sitting behind with more games played as opposed to being 3 or 4 behind and having to make them up. But you can find, like, if Detroit loses tomorrow, I think they play tomorrow night. If Washington loses tonight against Edmonton, you could finish Saturday a few points out of a playoff spot, like 3 or 4. I don't know the exact math. I don't know the matchups, but doing the math, you could be right there by the end of the weekend.
You just got to win. That's all you got to just win. Al Davis, just win, baby. All right. You got to get at least 10 here. At least 10 wins. You got 16 games left. At least 10 of them need to be wins, and that might not even do it. I'm
Keep
going
the
to say
season alive.
I'm going to say I mean, I said 11, 3, and 2, but like comfortably, you got to go 75% here. You got to get 12 of 16.
Do you want to hear some disgusting stats that might make you throw up?
Is one of them about the Penguins?
No, 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 not the Penguins. No.
Okay.
The fun. I think I know the stat you're referencing, but not about the Penguins. The Sabres have 2 more wins than the Islanders.
They have 14 regulation
Four,
losses. I mean, overtime
14
losses.
overtime. That's dude. What is their record in
Uh,
overtime?
it's
They got to
so
be like
bad.
1-4. Like, oh my god,
They got to be like
that's
1-9 and then like a few shootout losses.
and on top of that, their goal different. They're a -12, -12 goal differential. Do you want to hear where it gets more disgusting?
Yes.
They're the Capitals, who are 2 points up on the Sabres with 3 games in hand. They're a -27. How are they in this playoff race?
What are we? Like -3?
We're -2.
-2? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if the Sabres win, they could be back in the positives by tomorrow. And that just, then
It's the
it's
man,
an
it's just the
evil sport.
teams.
It's an
They're
evil sport.
just hanging around. These teams won't die. The Penguins, like they sell. This is their worst year since the Sabres won the President's Trophy, and they're still kind of in it. They've not known pain since before Crosby. And the Capitals, way past their prime. Like Ovi, I feel like he's hanging on by a thread. He's basically just going for the goal record at this point. That team is shot. And the Islanders are the Islanders. I don't know why they're even relevant. Like maybe the new coach is giving them a spark, but it's tough to watch, man. It's terrible. And of course, Tampa Bay, they have a down year and they're sitting in the first wild card spot.
Well, when you have Kucherov scoring like 50 more points than the next guy under him. All right.
He's nasty. He is nasty.
All
Quietly
right.
one of the nastiest players in the league.
All right. Before we move on to the blue and gold insights, let's quickly recap the deadline. So, as we said last time we met, Bowen Byram was traded. We still had 48 hours before the deadline. After that, the Sabres make 3 trades on deadline day. Eric Johnson goes to the Flyers for a 4th-round pick somehow. Kyle Okposo, he gets dealt to the Florida Panthers for an AHL defenseman, Kelly Jodine, something. I feel
Something
bad.
weird.
I feel bad for not looking it up. He actually scored tonight for the Amerks.
Yeah, good for him.
And near the buzzer, or at the buzzer, essentially, the trade was in the queue. Devin Cooley, they move out to San Jose, so making room in the AHL there. So the only moves that the Sabres end up making are the unsurprising ones.
Hmm.
Eric Johnson finds a new home, and Kyle Okposo finds a new home on Florida.
Just retirement home for former Sabres down there, man. You got Reinhart, Rodriguez, Montour, now Oposo.
Zach Delpe.
But
Casey Fitzgerald's hanging in their
Casey
system.
Fitzgerald is hanging around. Oh man. I wish Kyle the best though. Hopefully he can make a deep cup run. This is probably his last season in the NHL. Who knows what happens after this? I don't know what his plans are. I know he said something along the lines of he wasn't going to see his kids for a while because obviously they live here.
Hmm.
So maybe it's a situation where he goes down there for a few months and maybe he's got a job waiting for him when he comes back in the off season. But nevertheless, I wish him the best. He was here for a long time. Um, he was a great captain. You know, I wish I mean, I'll call a spade a spade. I wish that it was better for him while he was here. He went through a lot, the concussions. Um, he really wasn't producing like he was paid for in that contract. But, you know, besides the point, he's one of the reasons this team got turned around in the way it did, at least culture wise. I think he really helped these players buy in to the mentality that they could start something new here after all the crap that's gone on while he was here previously. And even Adams said at the Blue and Gold Insights little tidbit, he said that he was asked a question of like, what was one of your most difficult challenges of being a GM in this league and as the GM of the Buffalo Sabres, and his answer was he thought it'd be a lot easier for to he thought it'd be a lot easier to get a group of guys to buy into an ideology that he was trying to preach in a way he was trying to run this team. And it was a lot easier said than done.
And
Like
I think we know the group he was referencing.
exactly, yeah. And that's where it all fell apart. And it was just Oposo, Girgensons, and
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
just a bunch of kids. He
Middle
was
stat.
he was the one that stuck by. He had that the infamous text to Don Granado after the 18th straight loss, and
Hmm.
I'll say the rest is history. And people, like I said, people will roll their eyes and no playoffs. But look, you can be mad. I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm not going to say you don't have to be spiteful towards him. I would just appreciate that he stuck around a franchise that at that point in time, I don't think anybody else wanted to be, or at least anybody who had been in the league for any more than 3, 4 years.
Yeah, some of these guys, like some of these NHL players and their egos, he easily could have said like, I don't want to be here.
He could have
That
retired.
contract, he could have retired. That contract is also basically an albatross because it's almost untradeable. You'd probably have to retain salary if you did trade him, but he bought in to what Kevin Adams wanted to build here. And I think there's something special still in the making coming down the road in the next few years. It may have taken a little bit longer than we thought, but we're at year 12, 13 at this point. What's the rush, I guess? It's long enough. All
La-
the years blend together.
Last thing before we get off, Gergensons and Olafson, they do stick around. Now, Gergensons, it does seem like there was a bit of interest. Olafson, I don't think there was. And I think a large part of that was the retained salary, or should I say lack thereof.
Hmm.
So, those two stick around. They're here for the final push. Kyle, we wish you all the best. Eric Johnson, we wish you all the best. Um, it was a fine deadline.
Yeah.
I get there's still some people not happy with Adam's deadline, but look, I'll say it again. A message that I've kind of echoed since it ended. He didn't have to make that Middlestat trade now.
No.
He could have waited. He did not have to make it now. That's a move that 9 out of 10 times you're seeing in the offseason, not 48 hours before the trade deadline. So to me, and especially with how well it's gone so far, I'm satisfied with the deadline. I am.
Yeah, what were we expecting? We weren't close to a playoff spot. We're not going to be buyers. Adams did buy a piece. It was the kind of like it was a one for one. And as we've seen in the past 3 games, it's greatly improved our defensive core, which was a huge question mark going into the offseason. And then you sell off what you're not bringing back. Eric Johnson, see ya. Kyle Poso, give him his send off. It's the least you could do for that guy. Um, and then there wasn't much other interest like hanging around. I heard Adams made a few calls, and that was pretty much it. You know, what were you expecting? Like, I'd love to know if you're listening to this podcast right now, what's a trade that you were expecting to see Kevin Adams make that he didn't? Because this is what I was expecting. Couple
I
sells, maybe a trade.
I get it if you're upset about Gergensons or Olafson, but look, like I said, it just doesn't seem like they had the okay to retain salary. I mean, look, Eric Johnson got a fourth round pick. They didn't retain salary.
Yeah, that's
What
crazy.
what do
We
you
won
like
that trade.
if they retained 50%, what the hell do you think he gets? Or even Poso, just like what's $1 million? What's $1 million? Just to retain.
Right, for the rest of the year, which you
So,
have a room to do. And I hate to break it to you folks. If you're not a big fan of Zemgus Girgensons, he's most likely coming back next season and possibly for the next two.
oh, Adams really made it sound like they were going to bring him back at that post trade deadline presser.
That's Terry's boy, man. He's not
What
going
what do you
anywhere.
call him? He called Gergensen special. I'm like, oh, Kevin, not
He's
everybody's special, and you definitely don't need to say everybody's special.
he's not going anywhere.
He's,
Honestly,
I'm fine with it.
I'm fi fourth line
It's
winger.
fine.
Fine.
He's good. Look. It's funny. Everybody's talking about him at the deadline, being a little upset that he didn't get moved. He's been fantastic with Tage and Tuck on that top line. They've been real
Yeah,
well together. So
maybe I was gonna say maybe it's one of those situations where it's like Sidney Crosby, where he could elevate the players around him on that line, or like Jack Eichel.
just Gergensons is elevating Tage and Tuck.
Yeah, yeah, that
I thought you were going to say something along the lines of, "Look, we're finally tapping into his draft potential. It's finally here."
we are, we are. He's finally starting to peak. I saw his player card from 2014. It wasn't bad. He had the one drawback to his game when he was like at that point in time was he couldn't score. There was no finish. He was great two-way guy. Could have been a Selke candidate, but just he just
I don't
could
know. I
not
don't
put the puck in
know.
the net.
Yep. Yep. All right. That wraps up the Sabres deadline. As the two of us said, we're pleased. Obviously, there's some other thoughts going around, but you got Byram. You got rid of the guys that, at the very least, you should have gotten rid of. I'm glad, like I said, like I've been saying, I'm glad they pulled the trigger on Okposo. I think the room needed to be tested, and it needed to be tested now in season while on the brink. See who steps up. Let's get into blue and gold insights. So obviously something that I know not a lot of people were aware of happening because it's a season ticket holder exclusive event. JP and I obviously have tickets within our family. We invited Christian to come tag along. We
Much
figured it'd be
appreciated.
fun. Yep. It would be a bit of a spectacle, which at times it kind of was.
Towards the end, it got a little the tension. You could cut it with a knife.
But I thought, I don't think they advertised who was going to be there this time. Sometimes it's players. Usually, I think Adams is usually there, but I don't think you knew if Don Granato was going to join. But it was I was pleased that those two were the ones answering at the time that they were.
hmm It was constructive. I will say it was constructive. Um, I really I still believe in the general direction that Adams is taking the team and everything he says, I feel like it's very, you know, there's a lot of validity behind it and it's not just, saying things to make us feel better. I feel like he actually really, really cares. And I'm sure any GM, obviously it's their job. They care about making a team better, but I feel like Kevin Adams, I could believe in the drive. It's something I could buy into. And I have to say, for all the crap we talked about Don Granato this year, and for the people who don't want him back, uh, he might be back. And also, I was pleased with what he was saying at the insights as well. I thought he handled himself very well.
Well, let's get into that. Let's get into what the two of them said. So definitely, because we were definitely the people on the scene, providing people with the information that was being said, and a few parts of what we said got around. People had their own takes. The first Adams question about the off season. People kind of took this and ran. It was Adams saying that looking at the off season, he sees next season being placed upon the shoulders of the people already here. And when he talked about additions, he brought up a top nine forward or winger and or a fourth line center. And people were not happy. And I was a little surprised by that because like when you look at this team, look, you should always look to upgrade your team. Always shoot for the stars. Always. But I'm not going to sit here and act like on paper the top 6 is a weak point of the team. It's been a weak point this year. But I think like, we can all see what's going on. Tage Thompson has not been healthy. Alex Tuck has not been healthy. Jeff Skinner has not been healthy. Jack Quinn has not been available. And Dylan Cousins, I'm just going to chalk it up to a down year. The only piece that's been fantastic throughout, JJ Peterka. Like, that's your top 6. And I'm not saying you can't have an addition to that. But I think what Adams is saying is realistic. Like, there shouldn't be too much tampering. 1 year ago, they scored the 3rd most goals in the league.
Yeah, it's like who's coming out of this lineup? I mean, unless you trade someone again. I mean, your trade that we thought was going to happen, or the guy we thought was the odd man out, he just got traded. He's gone. He's in Colorado now. We got Byron back. Rounded out the D unit a little bit. I personally think that they're due to add maybe like a top playmaking winger. That would definitely help the team out. It could take some of the load off of Jeff Skinner's uh shoulders. But other than that, and maybe like a depth center at a fourth line guy, it's like who do you want to replace one of the guys you've drafted?
Yeah, I just don't. I didn't see where people were really coming from. I guess you can be unhappy that they're not. I don't know. It just I didn't agree with it. I didn't agree with the response, and I got what Adams was saying. The other big one was about Granado, what he said, and he was asked by Brian Duff a question that was submitted in how or if there's going to be tweaks to their system next year. And he said no. He said there's probably not going to be a lot. And the quote that I found really interesting, he said there weren't a lot of system changes this season. And that's another one that I think I get the reaction for that one, but I think rationally I understand I believe Granado because I don't think their system changed. Like, what's a hockey system? Your forecheck. What's your defensive structure? What's all that?
X's and O's.
I don't think any of that really changed. I don't think people were told to stay in different places. I don't think that the way that they were supposed to generate offense changed. I just think it's obvious the mentality changed.
Yes, exactly.
I think a perfect example of this, Rasmus Dahlin's quote from a few weeks ago. Him saying, I can't jump up into rushes right now. That's not a system thing. That's purely mentality. That's purely just the way somebody's playing, an individual. And I'm not, that's still on Don Granado because he was preaching it.
Mm-hmm.
The entire organization was basically preaching it, and that's on them. But I'm just saying, I believe Granado when he says there wasn't a lot of changes in that regard.
Yeah, you basically took the words out of my mouth. It's not a structure change, it's a psychological change. Like the system was the same going into this year, but they probably just tried to emphasize defensive play more. And we found out at the beginning of the season with how everything was going is that it didn't pan out. It didn't work. It's not something this team is built to do. This team is built to run 100 miles an hour. They're meant to score off the rush. They're not a big dump and chase team. And when they were trying to dump and chase, it was going horribly. They could not get possession, and it would lead to just an onslaught. They'd get worn out in their own zone, and that would be it.
And then we get to what you kind of alluded to. Things got a little tense in there, I would say. Not it, like it wasn't heated. There wasn't people
No, yeah.
screaming. Nobody was booing them.
There was one moment that that doesn't sit right with me. But other than that, it was fine.
Yeah, because it was it got around on Sabres Twitter that they were pre-screening questions this time, and that hadn't happened at the previous events. They were purely, I think, open mic. Now I don't
Hmm.
know, I can't confirm that. This was the first one I had attended, but that's the way it seemed. They answer all the pre-screen questions, and then the floor opens, and then it kind of got a little heated in there. It def the one part there was one fan who it wasn't a question. Uh,
Mm.
they were just they were just you could just feel the air in the room shift.
Uh,
They just went into their disappointment, how it's just been a failure. It was basically a speech. I can't even recite all of what he said, but I think any fan could imagine. I think anybody listening could imagine the type of rhetoric he was trying to lay on Adams and Granado.
it wasn't even one person, it was two people. And it just like when I heard that, I just internally was like, ugh. Because they start going off on a tangent about like, oh, we're going on year whatever about the playoffs, and I think we should do X, Y. I'm like, dude, where is your question? Where's the question? All you're doing is it's like you called WGR and you're trying to talk into the phone right now. You're not asking a question. All right? You're saying what we all already know and what we are already thinking. You're just getting it out so you could sleep at night. So you shouldn't have been offered to you should not have been offered to ask a question because you didn't ask one. And it was dude, it was like cringe just to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dude, we know, we get it. We understand where we're at and we're all feeling the same way. You're not the mouthpiece for this.
The best part about it was was Adam's response after it happened. As soon as the guy kind of finished, like there was, like I said, there was no question to it. He just stopped talking, and everybody's eyes go to the front, and Adams just nods, and he's like, "Okay."
Yeah. He's like, what's
He's
your
okay.
question?
He's like, "Okay," and then we just moved on, and it's like I can't blame him. I would do the same thing. It's like, dude, like, look, this is supposed to be an open discussion. You can be mad, you can ask questions, you know, challenge us, but don't waste people's time here. If write a letter if you're that angry. I don't know.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, it's not you're not there to put these guys on blast.
Write a
Who-
poem or something, dude.
Start a
And
podcast.
yeah, do this. This is where you could, yell into the abyss, all right? Not at an open mic discussion where we're supposed to be asking questions and having a two-way conversation. Not you spilling your rhetoric about how you can't sleep at night because your team hasn't made the playoffs in 12 years. Newsflash, buddy, we all feel the same way, all right? So shut up.
It was that second person that I think you're alluding to. That's when Granado got fired up. That's when
Yeah.
he had his long speech because the first person that we're alluding to kind of just went into his overall disappointment with the franchise and his frustration. And the second person kind of he had the same type of rhetoric, but it was much more placed on this season. And it was definitely a bit more directed at Granado. And he got a little fired up and not angry, not like he wasn't pissed off, but
Hmm.
it was definitely his most emotional response of the night. He had this long speech, basically saying there's still been progress this season. There's going to continue to be progress, and I can promise that to you. And look, I get it. That's gonna fall on a lot of deaf ears. It just is.
Hmm.
But as we said, it got a round of applause from the audience. It it was a good speech, and it's nice to hear Granado in that light. I thought you could tell that this is a guy who's pressured to still perform. A lot of people, I think, took just looking at the responses to our thread, it seemed like a lot of people got the impression Granado's not going anywhere, and there's a good chance that's the truth. I didn't get that 100%. I still thought you could tell that Adams never got fired up like that during the night. He was calm, collected. He knows his job is safe. and it should be.
Hmm.
Granado, you could tell that I think he feels the pressure. He feels the day to day. He's worn down, and
Yeah.
he's running. I guess running out of answers, and he doesn't like people throwing it in his face. But who does?
No one does. And he got a little bit of a round of applause from everyone after that speech. And you know what? There was 100% some there was 100% genuine, is it genuinity? Is that the word? Or just 100% genuine? Yeah, I felt that it was a genuine, response to what was going on. And the only part of that night, like there was a ton of, ooh, or cringe, or like sitting back in your seat, or like, oh boy, they're gonna start
couple
like
couple
go.
times. I don't know if Adams or Granado hurt him at all, but we were like at the halfway point of the
Yeah.
section, and there were people behind us every now and then, you know, throwing a few heckles. I think Adams at one point or Granado at one point said like there's still been progress, and you could hear one person behind us saying, "I don't see it," or "Where is it?" or something along those lines. It just
Well, and then
I
the
don't know.
one guy goes hire Lindy Ruff. I'm like,
He said I didn't even hear that part.
yes,
Oh
some
my
guy,
god,
some guy in behind us
that's
when
terrible,
Granada was
dude.
talking, he either said like bring in Lindy Ruff or hire Lindy Ruff. I'm like,
It's so childish.
it's like, what are you, 6 years old, bro? It's like, are you gonna what do you think? What do you think's gonna happen when you say, do you, I know you want them to hear it. So it's like, what kind of response are you trying to get? Are you just trying to like make everyone here uncomfortable? Are you trying to throw it in this guy's face that he might be getting fired? Um, does it really make you that angry that your hockey team is bad? Like, do you not have anything else going on in your life to, break up the day of you not thinking about this team? It's like, grow up. Why are you here if you're going to say stuff like that? Like, I'm not saying like it's definitely not deserved, but I understand the frustration, but it's not the time and the place.
Yep. It's I'm not, at one point I remember you kind of looking over me or nudging me and saying like, come on, this is kind of ridiculous. And look, I agree. I think that any fan that did that, it's childish. They shouldn't do it. It's, I get it. You're paying a lot of money. You're frustrated. We're all frustrated. There's people in there that have been frustrated as long as we've been fans. At the same time, look, these are two people that have only been here for a few years. I'm not saying don't get mad. I'm not saying don't challenge them, but just don't yell at them when they're trying to be constructive. They're trying to hear feedback. Like they're there with you on a Monday night.
Not a lot of
But
teams do that. What other
yeah,
teams do
I was
that?
gonna say I don't know if there's a lot of teams that do something like that. But at the same time, I remember I said to you, I'm like, look, they have to face it. You
Yeah,
can you can get mad at the fans, but look, they have to face it. They have to get a real life, punch in the gut. This is legit how they're feeling. It's more than just booze in the arena. It's individuals that are showing up to these events just to get mad at you.
there's a lot of childish people out there, man. You got to take it in stride. And you made a good point while we were there. We're filling their pockets. So this is part of the job. But when it comes to childish insults, I don't have time for that.
Overall, I thought it was a good event. I'm happy we went. I
Me
thought we
too.
got a lot of insight. Some of the other
100%.
some of the other stuff Adams mentioned at one point he got a trade offer with like a few minutes to go at the deadline, which I thought was interesting. I thought the one part was funny how somebody asked about if the GMs keep in touch at all, and he's like no, but like we should start like that's a good idea. We should have like a Google Doc. I would just use it to lie to everybody. And he's like, I think Friedman would try to get his hands on it. He's so pissed at Friedman. He's so mad about that Tuck report getting out.
Yeah, I mean, I would too. Like
Yeah.
he didn't even
He got one phone call.
he got the phone call. He didn't even entertain trades. He didn't go out searching for a trade. He got one random phone call, and then it's in 32 thoughts. Like,
Yep. But I was happy. I was happy with what they said, and there's only so much they can say. And the majority of the people there, they respected what they said. They had a good time, gave them their applause when they left, and the air in the room had lifted by the end of the night.
They had some, pickings there. They had a nice spread, all right. They had, you got a drink ticket. They gave out a bunch of signed team jerseys, like authentic ones too, not Chinese knockoffs. And they had a nice spread. They had some cookies, some popcorn, all that good stuff. So I think they put on a nice event. I hope to go to one of those again in the future.
I agree. You're invited.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I can't afford season tickets.
All right, but I think we're running a bit long here. It's late. I kind of want to go watch the Edmonton Washington game while I'm editing this,
Oh
and
yeah.
we'll get this out to you guys by the morning. Sabres are in this playoff race.
I'm cautious as always,
Look,
cautiously optimistic.
I think they've hopped Pittsburgh, they've hopped New Jersey. I think when you watch an ESPN game and they have the in the hunt column, I think the Sabres they've met that threshold. They are officially
They're
in the
there.
hunt. They're in the
They're
hunt.
there. It's like the drought bills, always in the hunt, and you need help from everyone.
Hmm. All right, but I think that's going to do it for this episode. Looking ahead, I think we'll definitely speak to you guys after the Islanders game and the Detroit game on Saturday. So probably I would expect to record Sunday. We'll get that out to you. Hopefully the results went well. I really hope they do. But other than that, if Christian doesn't have anything else to say,
What good do I have to say, honestly? What do I contribute to this podcast?
did you see Casey Middlestat scored last night?
I did see that. It was a nice goal.
It was nice.
It's not a goal you see him score often,
No,
streaking between two defensemen. Very good. Good for
very
him.
good. Good for him. Still got to score a few more to catch up to Bo. In any case, if you want to follow us on Twitter, follow us at the Sabre Report. Follow us on Instagram at the Sabre Report. Follow us on TikTok, although maybe not for much longer. Subscribe to us on YouTube. If you want updates for the pod, follow us at Sabre Report Pod. Go give our friends over at the Buffalo Sports Talk podcast a listen and follow. A lot of free agency news going on in the NFL. But I think other than that, we will talk to you guys next time. Take care. Feel free to leave a review and go Sabres.
One win at a time, baby. Go Sabres.